All right. Hello, everyone. Dai-Shihan Miller here from Warrior Concepts. It's time for this week's Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday. All right. So the topic for this week, we're going to be taking a look at attacking unseen points. This is a huge lesson that recurred again and again and again throughout my training with Hatsumi Sensei, and it's just a huge part of Ninjutsu. Right? We have to remember that the core premise in Ninjutsu, information gathering, but this invisibility thing, right? That doesn't mean that we disappear in a puff of smoke and, cheesy ninja movie shit, right? What we're looking at is this idea that the very foundation of all this is Kyojutsu Tenkan, right? Disguising truth and falsehood, disappearing in the eyes of the enemy. There's all these little quotes throughout the scrolls. But what we're looking at is that nothing in Ninjutsu is ever what it looks like, right? And so what we're really looking at doing is being able to attack him and do things in a way where he doesn't know what's going on at all, or at least until it's too late. He can't see it happening, and therefore he can't stop it. Okay, so got a little weird glare on this thing. I'll try to shift so you can see it, right? Should just be handling this, right? So obviously we're always looking at mastery. Now, if you only want to learn a couple of moves, if you're just all about technique, those kind of things, you can learn that anywhere, right? I mean, YouTube, right? For those of you who are watching this on YouTube right now, YouTube is rife. Do a search on martial arts, do a search on Ninjutsu, do a search on fighting or self-defense or anything like that, and look at the number up at the top where it tells you how many videos there are. Okay, there's no shortage of technique lessons. Okay, the reason why we have so few compared to all of those watching things like this is because most people don't want to do the extra work, right? And that leads me into the problem that we need to address if we're focused on having an edge on people who are potential attackers who are better than us, right? Ninjutsu was always designed so that the underdog could neutralize and survive a situation, right? In situations where you're supposed to lose, you can win, right? This is not same rank, same age, same size, same weight class, no, okay? If you are even with this person, you already have an advantage. If you are the better fighter, if you're the bigger person, the stronger person, the faster person, whatever, you don't need an art like Ninjutsu, right? Will it help? Yeah, of course, right? It'll always help. But this is for those times when we don't have the advantage. As a matter of fact, we have a significant disadvantage, right? Nin implies surviving overwhelming odds, okay? So anyway, so I'm going to be going into some things here that, we'll get to these 4 types of unseen points that I want to cover, but there's some other areas that this kind of comes from. But let's get back to this problem, right? I cite these things again. So if you're in my normal classes, if you've been to seminars, if you're in my online training program, if you're in my inner circle group, whatever, you hear this all the time. If you're a follower of Whiteboard Wednesday, Kuden, whatever, right? You hear this all the time. But the primary problem is that most people fight like everybody else, okay? Most people set out to fight like everybody else, right? And you can hear this when they see lessons like this, or I'll do, whether it's a YouTube short or it's a longer thing or whatever, and we're talking about strategic thinking, we're talking about tactical application, right? The flaming comments that just start, right? You don't need all that BS, right? All you need to do is put on some gloves, get in a ring, and rock and sock with somebody, right? So, okay, great. So you just told me 2 things. One, the way everybody else does it is the way that you should do it because you're more about just trying to figure out, right? Let's see what happens. Who's going to win this time, right? And that's fine in a contest, but in a survival situation, there are no do-overs, right? The other thing you told me is how to come at you, because what you just told me by telling me or by negating all this other stuff, like, nobody grabs a wrist, nobody does this, nobody does that, that's not the way it's done, whatever, right? All you're doing is building a list for anybody that's paying attention to know how to come at you, because 1, you won't be expecting it because you don't believe it works. 2, You haven't trained to have any kind of answers for it. And 3, you're going to be under an enormous amount of pressure because you have to come up with a solution on the fly under pressure when you probably don't work at your best. So anyway, right? So even for those people who gravitate toward martial arts, different martial arts styles, self-defense systems, or whatever, to do this, right? To get an edge, right? To not fight like everybody else, they often miss the fact that the more people learn about and see those things that you're learning, I don't care if it's in Black Belt Magazine or some other thing like that, online videos. You already talked about YouTube. Shit, all they have to do is look it up, right? Or they go to competitions, right? Competitions are rife with this example of people borrowing ideas and tactics and strategies and tricks from other systems, from other styles, right? Way back in the day, karate stylist fighting a taekwondo stylist, you could see the difference. You could see a huge difference. Karate, taekwondo, right? But eventually, right, everybody starts borrowing things. It's harder to tell style outside of somebody's cool, fancy uniform and maybe a patch or the fact that there's a style name listed past or next to their name, right? You can see it much better when you're looking at kata, the kata part of the demonstration where they're doing the kata from that particular style because that can't be deviated from. But in sparring, shit, good luck, right? So, but the less of advantage you have, right? I remember way back, the very first UFC fight I ever watched in its entirety was number 3, okay? And this was, the Gracies had just invented this thing. Everybody was jumping on it. But the marketing about it was all about, let's see whose style is best. And numbers 1 and 2, right, looked very, very different. By the time we got to number 3, right, this is like a bad game of telephone, right? I say something to that guy. He's supposed to say the exact same thing to the next guy. He's supposed to, right? What we've always found whenever we do that in class, just to make a point about how this works, by the time it gets to number 3, it's already starting to change. And that's what happened. In UFC number 3, there were already, like, people were bragging about going to a 6-week jiu-jitsu camp so that they could have the ability to go up against the Gracies, who've been doing jiu-jitsu since they were 5 years old. What kind of fucking moron does that, right? Or even believes that that's doable, right? That's like a kindergartner thinking they can take on somebody anyway, right? So, but that's what was happening. There was already this bleed over. And now when you watch these things, right? Yeah, I know some people do shoot fighting, some people whatever, but like everybody has seen all these things now, and they're either borrowing from it or they've developed defenses against it. It's just the nature of the way things work, right? So we got to be careful, right? Okay. So what we want to do is have an advantage outside of that, right? We want to have things in our toolbox, so to speak, in our bag of tricks that no matter what he does, right, he can't negate it, right? So what we're going to be looking at today is this idea. It's one area in Ninjutsu where we're attacking targets and we're attacking in ways that he is either unaware of. Generally, he can't defend against it, and I'll show you why, right? And 3, he can't do what he does without exposing certain targets, right? Right. So before we talk about the types of weak points you can attack, right, we need to look at some areas of study that makes this more and more possible, right? It leads to this mastery thing. It's not just like remembering a trick. Oh yeah, I learned that Thursday's class at 3:00 6 years ago, and it's in my notebook somewhere, but I've never practiced it and I vaguely remember it. Okay, well, if you can vaguely remember it while you're having a normal conversation, you're not going to remember it when your life is on the line. Okay, and again, when I say life is on the line, I'm not being dramatic, right? The perspective that I teach from is not, let's have a high school fight, let's have a parking lot fight, let's have a barroom fight, let's have a sport competition fight where there's a winner loser, and generally speaking, more often than not, everybody gets to go home. Somebody's licking their wounds and somebody's got bragging rights. Okay, sometimes they don't work out so well and somebody goes to jail. But, right, we're talking about no do-overs. This is not I didn't volunteer to be here, whatever, okay? So, and even if you don't die, I promise you, right, the combat vets that watch these, they know what I'm talking about, okay? You came home, but some part of you still died, right? And you're not the same person, one way or the other, right? Some of us got stronger, other ones, VA benefits are hopefully serving them, right? But just because you won the fight doesn't mean your life is still intact. Doesn't mean you still have your job, your wife, your girlfriend, whatever, okay? Just something's going to change, okay? So, but again, we're going to go through these study areas. Do you have to study them? Nope. You can do whatever you want, okay? I'm just going to outline the things that I have done and I continue to do because it gives me an edge. The more I know, and the more I know about not only how I'm going to do it, but the more I know about how different fighters do things, the more I know about these things that are on here, the easier my job is, okay? Because it's all about foresight, right? The more I can learn and study now and rack up on and get experience with, sparring, all that kind of stuff, right? Working with different attacker types and that kind of thing, the more knowledge I'm gonna take to that moment. Easier that, and it's not that fights are easy. It's not that attack situations and survival is easy. It's going to be easier by a lot, okay? But here's the warning, right? This isn't the easy part. The easy part is going to class or watching videos and aping the step-by-step techniques. That's the easy part, okay? Getting good at the physical skills and the body mechanics. That's the easy part. Okay? Actually applying that stuff under pressure against somebody who wants to beat, break, and kill you, not so much. But hey, that's my experience. If yours is different, send me your information. I'll be more than happy to look at your stuff and or sign up for a seminar and show up and learn from you. Okay. All right. But anyway, before we get into all that, and I'm always remiss about doing this stuff, and I always kind of feel weird about doing it, but please do other people a favor, do the channel a favor, right? Like and share this stuff, okay? It helps out the channel, obviously, right? Because it tells YouTube or Facebook or whatever that this is something that people like. But by doing that, it actually helps out other people. It helps out those who are looking for this kind of thing, and it makes it easier to find because it'll rank higher in the search results and all that, right? So I'd appreciate it, and whether they ever meet you, know you, or whatever, they'll appreciate it too if they can get a handle on this kind of information and then not the same kind of step-by-step. I mean, how many times can you see the technique or the kata, seon, shiaku, or whatever demonstrated by some monkey online? Even me, okay? Anyway, all right, so let's do this. Let's take a look at these areas of study and understanding. This list was built based on teachers telling me. I highly recommend that you study this, you pay attention to these things directly, right? Indirectly, them just kind of mentioning it in class. I scribbled up my notebook, and right? And other ones were based on those, but I found that they were related, and like, I didn't even know that happened, right? Is that an everybody thing? Is that just a certain personality type? Is that a, right? Okay. So here are some study areas that, like I said, is going to make this much easier, because you can memorize the points and you can memorize the little lesson that I'm going to give you today, but that doesn't mean that you can make it work again when, you know, somebody's coming at you. All right. So first one is anatomy and body dynamics, right? And again, this is like an MMA rules list. Okay. Multiple things may be on the same line, right? So if you see 30 rules of things you can't do in an MMA fight, if you actually look at the lines, you will find that, like, these two, they should probably be on two separate lines. So that list of 3 that originally started out, or the list of 30 that originally started out as 3, should probably be closer to, I don't know, 50. Okay. But anatomy and body mechanics. Okay. How's the body work? How's it built? Right. Okay. It's going to affect how you learn things and how you do things. It's also going to affect how your understanding about what he's capable of, regardless of flexibility, regardless of muscle mass, that kind of thing, right? You learn very, very quickly, right? There's no such thing as double jointed. That's a misnomer, okay? Somebody's extremely flexible, but they're not double jointed, right? They don't have two joints, and they don't have joints that work in both directions the same way. It's not that, it doesn't work that way. And if they do, they're either in a lab somewhere and they're going to die there being checked out for the rest of their life, or they're traveling around with one of these freaking local fairs or Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey circuses as a freak show. Okay. But it doesn't exist. Okay. So certain terms we need to drop. Okay. But anatomy and body mechanics. Okay. Let's see how the eyes work. How the eyes work. Okay. In the Gyoko school, there is a list of lessons that Hatsumi Sensei, my teacher, got from his teacher Takamatsu Sensei on the Happo, right, of the Gyoko-ryu, the Kihon Happo of the Gyoko-ryu. These are not 8 techniques; these are 8 skill and ability development areas. One of them, right, this all falls into an area called Seishin. Seishin is everything about psychology. It's everything about the way you think, the way you process things, the way human beings, the way different personality types see things, process the world, all those kind of things, right? But one of those areas is also called Ganho. Gan is another word for eye, right? Mei is the other one, right? Ganho. And that includes everything from how the eye operates and sight consciousness and all that to what you pay attention to and whatnot, right? But how do the eyes work? Okay, peripheral vision, all those kind of things, right? How can they be deceived? It's really easy to deceive your eyes. So for people that believe or that held that way of navigating the world, that they don't believe anything that they can't see, taste, touch, whatever, right? They've obviously never looked at how easy it is to deceive the senses, which is all about what ninja do. Okay. So anyway, how the eyes work. Okay. I already talked about this one, right? How the mind processes data. Okay. A while back, I did an online class for my inner circle guys about how the mandala actually shows, right? Sensory input comes in here. It goes to perception or judgment. That passes it over to conceptualization, and then that has to jump into consciousness, storehouse consciousness, to see if we know anything about this already or what it is, and then the double feedback loop that goes back into putting it into action, all that kind of stuff, right? Some people would say I have weird hobbies. This is all of these are game changers, but this one, oh, dudes and dudettes, I tell you, okay? So how the mind processes data, information, whatever, okay? It's a study of belief systems. Talk about that a little bit later as we go on into these things. Okay. Belief systems and how they control things at a subconscious level, that even if we're faced with evidence right in front of us, absolute facts, we'll hold on to these with our lives because this is where our sense of reality is grounded. Okay, even if it's wrong. Okay, so let's see. Previous Whiteboard Wednesday, we discussed this, right? Flinch responses. Okay, autonomic, right? Instinctual flinch responses. They're defense mechanisms. We could even go into split this mind processing data out into the emotions and how they work. I don't know if I have them on. I don't think I have them on the list here. Studying or observing and paying attention to this idea that fights are dynamic. Fights are dynamic, not static. Right. This is where the argument from the group that says kata don't work and you can't use them in a fight come from. Not saying they do, right? But the whole idea that things are always moving, right? And this combined with the mind processing data, understanding that by the time the left brain recognizes an opportunity, right, that there's a lineup between my weapon and that target, like in 200ths of a second, less than a quarter of a second, it's going to be misaligned again, right? So we have to kind of have an intuitive sense about how things are, an intuitive sense of timing and feel. Hatsumi Sensei talked about feel. One of the things that he referred to, not always, because he just used the word, it's the feeling. It's the feeling. What, are we talking about the emotional feeling? Are we talking about the sensory, tactile kind of thing? Are we talking about an intuitive sense of timing? Or, right? A lot of people just parrot words, okay? But what are we looking at? Okay. Another one, studying different fight styles. Right? How do people from different styles, how do they posture? How do they position? What kind of distance do they need to execute their techniques? Their methodologies, right? How do different styles punch? How do the different styles kick, right? We could say that a punch is a punch is a punch, or a kick is a kick, or whatever. And while that's true, right, there are nuances. Okay, is the elbow in and tucked? Is it up this way, right? Does he come around this way? Is this guy just doing these big old flailing, street monkey kind of things? Whatever, okay? Let's see. This one, right? How do different, just go down here, right? How do different fighters think? Okay. So this is a combination of mind processing data, their belief systems, and there's some other stuff in there as well, okay? But it's mostly conditioned by the fight styles, okay? Things that have worked in the past and all that. This thing I talked about earlier, this idea of seishin, the psychology of things. Part of this is understanding that me in the moment, right, and what I know, part of that is based on intellectual, external lessons, right? From teachers, from parents, from grandma, whatever, right? From reading books or whatever. I learned this stuff, right? So part of that's coming from over here. Another part is stuff I taught myself or I discovered, right? And that's through experiences and things like that, right? Well, these guys are the same way, okay? So how do they think? Well, how do they think about what, right? How do they think about options? Right? What they can do, how they're going to pick and choose, right? And again, the more these guys here have stuck to one particular style, the more crystallized this is going to be. The harder it's going to be under pressure for them to think outside the box. The harder it's going to be for them to recognize possibilities, right? So think about the last time you learned a technique or you learned something and sensei or me or somebody pointed something out and you thought, holy shit, I never thought of that. I just had a student the other night in one of our virtual classes. I was doing something and he said, we were working stick defense. And I was talking about the flinch response coupled with the dynamic nature of the fight. And it's not just about him punching and kicking and whatnot, but when that stick impacts bone or a sensitive point, there's this dynamic thing. It's going to move a certain way based on the angle, the force of the impact, those kind of things, right? We have a saying in the black belt class that if there's a contest between a stick and a bone, the tree always wins. That's what a stick is, right? It's just a piece of tree, okay? So at the end of class, I said, what'd you learn? He goes, I had never considered the dynamic stuff. We had always done slow, soft training. Nobody ever moved when we touched them because we were just touching them. But the uke's job is to take that so he doesn't have to get hammered, right? Is to take that and be able to authentically recreate that flinch response so the tori, so the defender, knows what the hell he's going to see in an actual fight. Most people that are doing their stuff because their uke doesn't move on impact or whatever, I don't care if it's pulled or it's soft or whatever, since they don't move, when that defender has to deal with things on the street and actually lands a shot and all of a sudden the body, the attacker's body adjusts and nothing is where it's supposed to be, they're going to be lost, right? They're going to be no better off than somebody who has no training whatsoever, okay? So anyway, what options? What options are available, okay? How they set things up. how they set things up. An example of this is Taekwondo style kickers. And that's not just Taekwondo. There's many Japanese styles and whatnot that ride high and whatnot, Muay Thai to an extent, right? What they do is they use their body to gauge distance. So they'll use their limbs to set things up or whatever, but they move in because the power is generated, the power in the kick is generated with the leg muscles. In Taijutsu, it's just the opposite, right? We adjust distance. What you can't see is me sliding my foot way forward while I'm staying here, and then the body weight in motion, I just lift the leg. The body weight in motion creates the power for the kick. That way I can do multiple kicks. I can redirect a kick. There's all kinds of things you can do because your leg and your limbs are free to move. Same thing, right? With the body and the arms and whatnot. Okay. So, but how these different fight styles and how these different fighters, how they set things up. Some set you up or try to set you up with jabs. Some try to set you up with little grabby kind of things at your body parts. Some try to set you up by doing these little flicky, jumping around kind of movements to get you all confused and whatnot, right? Some will spit at you. Some will, right? So what are they doing, okay, to set things up to execute their technique, okay? How they guard, right? They all guard differently, except this guy, right? He's not guarded at all, right? He's just hoping that big old windmill thing that's coming at you is going to be enough to, give him some lucky shots. But how do they guard? They all guard differently. We'll talk about this coming up with one specific fighter type. Guarding, and we'll just round out with one more, right? What possibilities they have. And they're going to be basing that on the way you stand, okay? Which is why our kamae don't look like anybody else's stances, okay? So if this guy's always in the same type of fights, everybody knows how you fight, man. You stand this way, you put your hands here, right? Well, see, that leads back to options and assumptions and all kinds of things because he's already prepared going in there to see certain things. That's going to allow him to set things up easier. It's going to make him feel better that his guarding is going to be fine. It's going to tell him that his options are perfectly fine, which is why it's a bad idea for people that, well, this feels funny, sensei. Why can't I just stand like this? Because you look like everybody else, and he's already going to know how to deal with you, okay? And I'll just stop there. There's lots more, right? There's always the and more, okay? But wait, there's more. I don't have time for more, okay? So anyway, for today, we're going to talk about 4 types of blind spots, 4 types of unseen points, okay, in the body. And I just kind of broke these things out. I gave you a couple of examples in each one, not a lot, but this is the 30,000-foot view over the sports stadium. You can take it and run with it, or you can join us on Friday for this virtual training because, right, we're going to be looking at several of these things during this week's training for those who want to dive into it much more deeply. Okay. So anyway, again, just a reminder, like, share, help other people out. Okay. Help us out, help us get information of this type. I'd say quality, but some people think it's shit. So whatever, of this quality and caliber to other people. Right. Okay. And if they're really looking for it, they'll thank you. Okay. And do it whatever way you feel most comfortable. But I've got a couple of folks like Julia and Jimmy and some other regulars that are constantly sharing this stuff. And the only reason why I know that they do that is because they'll just every once in a while send me something that, hey, shared it. Great. Okay? And I really appreciate it. And I'm sure the other people that bump into it, they appreciate it too. Okay. All right. So again, let's jump into these and we'll take a look at these 4 types of unseen points. Okay. So the first one, we're going to call them blind spots for today. I know I put unseen points, but they're blind spots. Okay. So the first one, right, are literal. Right? Let's call them, literal's fine. Literal, you could call it obvious, whatever, okay? So literal blind spots are things like the temple, okay? Anything outside of his peripheral vision. I'm just putting a P right here, right? That's peripheral vision, not penis vision or whatever. But if you have that kind of thing, write a book. Maybe some people will be interested. Right? Temple, anything outside the peripheral vision. What else do I have? The backside of the body, right? backside of the body and its parts. Okay? These are things that people literally cannot see. You can't see your temple. Okay? You can't see the side of your neck. Right? You can't see your windpipe. Right? You can't see behind you. You can't see the backs of your arms. You can try to rotate it around and take a look this way, but it's really, really difficult. You have to contort yourself to do it. Okay? So, like in one of our schools, the Gyoko school, right? Primary combat strategy is to circle around behind the attacker. Well, no shit. If I can get to these things, two things help me out. And this class is about one of them. One of them is I can attack things that he can't see the attack coming. If he can't see it, he can't defend against it. He can't avoid it. He can't evade it. He can't block it. He can't whatever, okay? The other thing is the human body, remember what I said? Anatomy and body mechanics, physiology. Can't defend these areas very well at all, okay? So how do we do that, right? Okay, second one, just I'm picking words for some of these because sometimes they don't work out so easily in English, but second type is incidental. What I mean by that is it happens because of what's going on, but it only lasts for a second, if that, okay? So some examples in here are, let's say, his arm during a punch. Okay, so he throws a punch, right? And I position so that my arm can attack this point on his rib cage, and he can't see the punch coming because his arm and shoulder are between his eyeballs and that gateway. If I'm off at a different angle, his peripheral vision will pick it up. Okay, so literal is I'm outside the peripheral vision. He can't pick it up because his eyeballs aren't, the light's not coming in. When we talk about how the eyes work, okay, we're talking about understanding that for us to see something, light has to reflect off of the surface of an object, go through the lens of our eye, hit our retina, get converted into an electrical impulse that goes to the brain, gets converted into a chemical process that fires an electrical storm in your brain, this neuron kind of thing, right? And does its thing, right? Gets converted, right? Okay. So if his eyes are positioned, or if I'm at an angle where the light's reflecting off of everything, but it can't reflect into his eyes because of the position of his eyes, then this is what we have. In this one, there's something blocking the way. Okay, there's something blocking the way. It doesn't matter how bright the sun is outside. If you're in a room with no windows, or you're in a room where it has these blackout curtains or whatever, right? The sun's always shining. But if the world is turned a certain way, other people are being blinded by it. Meanwhile, you can't see the sun, okay? It's the same process, right? So incidental. So the arm, his arm during a punch. What else do I have in here? Relative position of bodies. Okay, so I can still hit this point over here, even if his arm, let's say instead of throwing a straight punch when I hit this, right, he throws a hook punch, I drop below it and hit because he kind of turns in a direction where he can still see me, but he can't see the punch that's hitting him. And it's only going to be there for a second. With these are always true. Right? Unless you saw your shoulder blade off and bring it around and take a look at it, you're never going to be able to see your shoulder blade without a mirror. Okay? Not from where you're standing. Okay? With these, it can happen for just a quick second where a blind spot is created. Okay? And if I know these, now it's a matter of positioning and timing, not a matter of what technique I'm doing or what punch I'm doing or what fist I'm using or what official kata I'm using or whatever. It's about timing, distancing, angling, which are the three primary principles. Add on kotsu, essential nature of the technique, and everything changes. When you can start to look for things like this inside your techniques and how they're already buried in there, you're multiple steps closer to this than you were and than you are for the people that only look at the techniques. and they can't, I know it like the back of my hand. See, look, oh shit, I didn't know there was a scar right there. Well, I guess you don't know the back of your hand. Okay. So anyway, all right, next one. Right. So we have literal, we have incidental. Next one is conditioned. Conditioned. Okay. Conditioned are, let's see. This is based on the way he does things, his belief systems, and how that conditions what he looks for and what he believes is a target, right? One of the most surprising things for most people that come into this art, I know it was for me, is when a punch comes out, getting out of the way and attacking that punching arm. Wait, what? Right? We block because we're trying to keep him from hitting me, or I get out of the way because it's a weapon. No, it's a weapon if it's coming at me. It's a target if it's nowhere near me and I can hit it. Okay? So conditioned, here's an example of a conditioned blind spot. His rear hand or arm when he's punching. What do most people do when that punch comes out? They block, evade, or deal with this arm somehow. Most people don't get out of the way and punch this arm. But that's the next thing that's to be coming. So if I attack that and shut it down, most people aren't used to that. Okay? When they're moving around doing this kind of stuff, right? They don't think about the backs of their hands anyway. They don't think about these things being targets because it's my weapon, right? But as he's moving in, if I reach out and do these little flicking backhand knuckle kind of things to the fingers and the bones of his hand and start to hurt things, right? That changes things, okay? So what I'm doing is I'm going after things that he either dismisses as a good target, would never think of using, or just flat out doesn't think of it as a target, okay? It's not a target, it's a weapon. No, it's only a weapon if it's coming at me, okay? Everything goes back to this. Everybody knows what that is, okay? Everybody knows what this is, okay? What these people know that beginners don't, I don't care what their rank color is that this is not opposites. Only in the beginning stages is this anything close to opposites. What this is pointing to is that both of these things are happening at the exact same time. Attacking and defending is happening at the same time. For this person to learn this better and take up different postures and whatnot, they have to recognize that they can't do anything without giving you something. They can't punch without sacrificing an arm. They can't kick without sacrificing a leg, right? Okay. Another condition thing here is because most fighters think about hitting the juicy targets, groin, gut, face, whatever, right? Because these are weapons and these are targets. They think that the leading edge of the body is right here. But the leading edge of the body is the thing leading out in front. So couple the fact that they never think of that as a target because nobody has hit it before, or they've always worn gloves and hitting that doesn't do anything, okay? Couple that with this, what's leading, and most people, this is a mistake that people make in sparring when we talk about managing that kukan, being on the edge of the kukan. Most beginners will walk their body up to the kukan because the lesson is don't put anything inside the kukan you're not willing to lose for the rest of your life. So they'll walk this part of their body up to the kukan. Meanwhile, their leg and their arms are inside the kukan. Oops. Okay. This needs to be the edge of the kukan, not this. Okay. Everything changes. Another example is, let's see, the weapon you're guarding against. I already talked about that, right? The weapon you're guarding against. Okay. So that arm, that punch, right? Okay. Only for a microsecond when that punch is on target before you evade, is it a weapon? It's the reason you evade. But the moment, the microsecond you are not online anymore, it's a target. Transitions just like that, and you didn't have to touch it. All you had to do was readjust your perspective and alignment on it. Mental perspective, physical alignment, and association, right? Everything changes, okay? I already talked about this, right? How he sees arms, legs, whatever, right? He sees them as weapons. He doesn't see them as targets. You can exploit that. Go after it. Attack his fingers. Attack his hands, right? Stomp on his toe, right? Whatever, right? So these are conditioned. These are blind spots because we don't think of them as targets. Okay, so right now I'm gonna stop for a minute. I'll give you number 4 in a minute, but I'm giving you these. This is the omote. This is how to attack his unseen targets. I'm also giving you the uda, the backside, the hidden part of the training. Okay, and that's you being smart enough to reverse engineer all this stuff, so you know what to guard, how to move yourself in position so that these things don't come to bear and it doesn't give another opportunity to examine your belief systems to make sure that you're not exposing things that most people won't go after, but I will. And Hatsumi Sensei, well, he's retired now and all that, but anybody, all the Japanese Shihan and whatnot, right? People that know what they're looking at, and if they've assessed you and the way you're moving around with a certain fight style and whatnot, and this is where the Kyujutsu Tenkan comes in. This is where Kage no Kamae comes in, right? Kage, hidden, ghost, that kind of thing. Shadow Kamae, right? Where you take up one Kamae and you move a certain way that screams to him, I know what he's going to do. But in your heart, you're a different Kamae. Right? Kage no Kamae is the physical posture you take up that convinces him to think about you and things a certain way, gets him to think about the options, how to set up, how to guard, what possibilities and whatnot. But he's wrong because in your heart, that's the real one, and you're just waiting for him to come in with one of these. It's like him stepping into an open bear trap. Okay? Kokoro no Kamae is the one that most people train with, no matter what name you give it. Kokoro no Kamae, Kamae the heart. Okay? So that's where this is the front part of training. You learn this, but then you learn what that looks like, right? In a mirror, you learn what that looks like to other people. So then later you can present it as a trap, as bait. Okay? So people in this art are highly conditioned to how to think about how to get in on certain kamae, what's going on, how the technique is done, all that kind of stuff. And that's what sets them up for failure. Okay? Because think about this. This doesn't just include using your shit against other fighter types. Mastery lies in also knowing how to beat somebody that's learned all the shit that you have, and you need to still win. Because he went rogue. He popped a gasket. He whatever. Okay? So learning to defend against the untrained person and even other fight styles, that's the obvious. That's the omote, right? Every lineage, Gyoko-ryu, Koto-ryu, all these lineages, if you look at what they do and how they do it, what they do defends against their own techniques as well. Okay? I mentioned this in the past. Gyoko-ryu takes up Ichimonji this way or this way. Okay? Well, what's the difference? To most people, well, you can put your hand here, you can put your hand here, you can put your hand here. Why would you do those things? Okay? Yes, you can, but why? Okay? I put my hand up here if I'm dealing with a Koto stylist who one of their skills and one of their techniques with Uke Nagash is to slide in this space, hook the arm, and pull me forward and knock the shit out of me. But in Gyoko-ryu, what's one of our primary targets for Uke Nagash? Right there. So if I put my armored fist right here, or I just put my fist there, he can't hit that spot. Okay? So, interesting, huh? Okay. All right. And then the last one are created. Okay. See, these are created blind spots. Okay. So this involves things like Mitsubishi, right? Sight removers, spit, blinding powder, snap a towel at his eyes, put my hand over his face during a technique, whatever. If while I'm moving in, I modify my kosei and shift my hand so it passes by his eyes, at the moment I punch him, that target, even though without my hand there, it's in plain view. He can see it coming in. It's well within his peripheral vision and all that, but right? I take it away. So I create one, right? Pain. I use pain, okay? Because I'm looking at flinch responses. We talked about that over here, right? If I create the right kind of pain at the right time or a particular threat, his eyes will close or they'll tear up, okay? So now I create multiple blind spots because his eyes aren't functioning, right? That I only had 2 down here, okay? Please notice there's et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, okay? That's for you to keep carrying on with this stuff, okay? So anyway, that's what we got, right? So 4 types of unseen points, 8, one of them has 4 subsettings in it or whatever here, but 8 skill study areas that will make this much easier to apply, but 4 types of unseen points: literal, incidental, conditioned, and created. Literal are the things that, based on the way the body's built, there'll always be blind spots. You can turn your head 360 degrees and you'll never see your temples. Okay? That's why we invented mirrors, right? But you still can't see your temples with your eyes without an external aid. Okay? Backside of your body, anything outside the peripheral vision. Incidental, right? There's something blocking his vision in that moment, right? But it's incidental because of relative positioning of his body to his body, our bodies together, whatever. How is that not the same as created? Well, because this, I'm actually physically doing something to distort his vision, okay? Here, he did it to himself, or based on our momentary alignment, I know something's going to open up, and he's busy missing, so his eyes are still looking over there. He didn't even see me move yet. So when I hit him, he's trying to figure out where the hell I went at the moment he feels searing pain because I just cracked his floating rib, okay? So condition, this is all based on his belief system about what's possible, what's not possible, what's real, what's a target, what's a weapon, whatever, right? So we're going to attack him from inside or outside his belief system, right? He fucks himself, right? He's an accomplice to his own butt kicking, okay? And then created, we're going to do things that cause the eyes to look away, right? Hitting around the ocular socket right here that causes this flinch response, even if they don't close. Right? He moves, and now his eyeballs are pointing over here. His peripheral vision went from here to over here. I didn't have to move. Right? Until he looks back, anything that's outside of that is mine. Okay? Wouldn't have been, but here it is. Okay? So pain causing him to, right? Flinch, wince, right? Bring his hands up. Okay? Now, some of these are a combination of other ones, but all ninja lists are kind of open. Okay. So anyway, that's what I have. All right. So again, there's the link for this Friday's class. We're going to be doing techniques that are examples of these. Some will be Gyoko, some will be, whatever. Okay. But the idea is, how do we make this happen to give ourselves the greatest advantage? That's always what this is about. Okay. And the more of this stuff we can study, the more these Whiteboard Wednesdays that you do, or other people's that are like this kind of knowledge, right? This builds your seishin, right? This builds your psychology. This builds your mental. This is the mental training, right? This is the insight from knowledge that you bring to the moment that gives you the foresight to know what any particular jackwagon's going to do, because he can't do anything without either showing you his fight style, sacrificing something to you, right? Or giving you something. Okay? I'll show you how boxers give you targets that they didn't intend to. I'm going to show you how, right? Okay? He cannot present himself or do something without giving you either a target or information about what targets to go after. Us, it's the same. It's the way we're built. Okay. So this is really important stuff. This is where the mastery, this is where the magic lies. Okay. So even if I don't see you during a class, I know I've given you enough that you can just drop into your training and just keep running with it. I might have made some of you quit because sensation is way too much shit. That's fucking too hard. I don't want to do that. Okay, don't do it. Okay. Fair enough. Okay. But here's the thing: we're either training for mastery, right? We're training for good enough, or we're training for fantasizing that we'll be good enough, or fantasizing that we're a master. But that doesn't change the reality of things. Okay. Anyway, that's what I have. Oh, before I sign off, I was going to mention this thing. I was in Japan in 2015. It's on one of my sleeves over here. 2015, and this T-shirt was gifted to me from some new friends with the Bujinkan India training group. So if any of you guys are watching this thing, I still have it, still wear it, still keep it in good shape. See, Bujin back there is like a tiger shape, that kind of cool stuff. So thanks to you guys. And if anybody ever sends me things like that, I get gifted things all the time. Know that I use them, know that I wear them, right? And who knows, they may show up in one of these things as well, right? That's it. That's what I have. I'll see you next time on Whiteboard Wednesday.